Hello, my name is Michael Durbin. This is my book case study analysis for the Emergency Management Planning and Policy class for the fall 2015 term. I chose to do my case study analysis on the book Storm of the Century, the Labor Day Hurricane in 1935 by Willie Dry. Now, in order to understand why this storm was deemed the storm of the century, it's important to put it in the context of other powerful and intense storms in the United States history. In order to do that, I want to compare the top 5 most powerful and intense storms to ever make landfall in the United States. Number 5th most powerful storm was the Indianola, Texas storm of 1886. It was a Category 4 hurricane with 150 mile per hour maximum sustained wind speeds. Had a barometric pressure of 925 millibars. Hurricane Andrew, which made landfall in South Florida in 1992, was a Category 5 hurricane with a maximum sustained wind speeds of 142 miles per hour with 922 millibars on the barometric pressure scale. One that's familiar to most of us is Hurricane Katrina, which landed in 2005. Hurricane Katrina, along with Hurricane Andrew, actually made landfall twice. The initial landfall was in South Florida as a Category 1 storm, but where it did the majority of its damage was in the Gulf Coast, where it made landfall as a Category 3 storm with barometric pressure of 920 millibars, 125 miles per hour maximum sustained wind speeds. In 1969, Hurricane Camille made landfall as a Category 5 hurricane with 900 millibars barometric pressure. The maximum sustained wind speeds for this storm are unknown due to the measuring equipment being destroyed by the storm itself. And the most powerful hurricane ever to make landfall in the United States was the Labor Day hurricane of 1935, when it struck the Florida Keys as a Category 5 hurricane with a barometric pressure of 892 millibars and an estimated 185 miles per hour maximum sustained wind speed. Now, those estimates are not conclusive, and many estimates actually put that wind speed well above 200 miles per hour. Now that you have an understanding of the intensity of this storm, I'm going to do a quick summary of the book itself. The author paints a picture of the storm and the response efforts, but also paints a picture of the events leading up to the storm. Now, one of these is the bonus march. And the bonus march was actually a group of marches where an estimated 22,000 veterans of World War I marched on the U.S. Capitol. Now, this was in 1932 during the depths of the Great Depression. The veterans were looking for any way to help them through this rough time. In 1924, they were promised and approved a $1,000 bonus to be paid out in 1945. Well, during this time, they demanded a partial payment of $500 in 1932 as opposed to a $1,000 payment in 1945. This created a political conundrum for FDR and his administration. As a solution to this political issue, FDR created a New Deal program where an estimated 695 veterans were housed in veteran camps in the Florida Keys to help create the Overseas Highway, which connected the Keys to the mainland of Florida. It's important to note that the camps were constructed of shoddy construction at best. The roofs were made out of canvas material, and several of them flooded during normal tidal periods. Having that construction in mind, you can see the after effects of the most intense hurricane in United States history going through these camps. They turned the camps to rubble. In fact, the cabins in which the veterans were housed turned into nothing but deadly missiles, killing a large number of veterans and civilians alike. In addition to flying debris causing deaths, so did flooding and the storm surge caused by the hurricane. The storm surge was in fact so strong that it derailed an evacuation train sent to evacuate the veterans and others in the area. You can see some of the physical effects of the storm. In addition to that, 485 people died as a result, 257 veterans and 228 civilians. After painting a clear picture of the events leading up to the storm and the storm itself, the author goes into the response and recovery efforts. Now, dry states of the recovery efforts, the workers were composed of military personnel, state and federal governmental workers, Red Cross workers, and volunteers. The lines of authority were hopelessly tangled and confusion reigned, and tempers were short. The response efforts were so inefficient due to these tangled chains of command. Florida Governor David Schultz went down to the Florida Keys and personally took over a unified command of the response effort. And this is seen as a precursor to the NIMS unified command concept, where all recovery workers, whether governmental, local, federal, or from the private sector, respond to a single chain of command. This increases the efficiency of the response by ensuring that all recovery workers and response workers are on the same page and are working under the same methodology. In addition to just a unified chain of command, this also leads to training among the different agencies prior to an emergency response. And these widespread and large-scale emergency management planning programs help ensure that all emergency relief and response workers are on the same page, and it helps eliminate confusion in the immediate aftermath of a storm or other emergency management event. In addition to this, the Labor Day hurricane in 1935 proved the need of early evacuation. The forecast model at the time was 200 miles off of the actual landfall mark. Now, while meteorological forecasting has improved greatly since then, with the aid of satellite imagery and the ability to fly into a storm itself and take actual barometric readings from the eye and the eye wall, hurricane forecast models are still relatively ineffective. They cannot pinpoint the exact landfall location. Due to this, we have what's called the cone of uncertainty, and that leads to trouble when it comes to declaring an evacuation. Many officials err on the side of caution, and if it's possible that a severe storm will impact the area, they order an evacuation. However, too many false orders of evacuation, or orders of evacuation that are unnecessary, lead many to not evacuating when these orders are given. It creates a false sense of security and leads many to stay put with the intention of riding out a storm. Doing so causes the risk of death and injury to go up greatly. The storm of the century proved this, when people waited too late due not only to the storm not being forecasted to make landfall where it did, but to intensifying greatly over a 36-hour period. Now, this intensification is rare, however, it does occur. And it's one that emergency management officials have to take into account when ordering evacuations. They have to err on the side of caution for that event itself, but they also have to ensure that citizens will take those warnings and heed them. And ordering too many evacuations will nullify that. Now, as is the case for most disasters, the emergency management field studies the disaster, the events leading up to it, and the response efforts to better prepare for future emergencies. Now, in the 1935 Labor Day hurricane, some of the things we learned from that were the need for early evacuation and a unified command structure. However, more exists, as they always do. Listed are a list of references that I've used for my case study analysis, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you may have about this event.